Okay, welcome to the April 16, 2025 meeting of the Village of Lake Bluff Joint Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. If we could have a call to order, roll call, please.
Yes. I'd like to call to order the Village of Lake Bluff's Joint Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting for Wednesday, April 16th at 6 p.m. We'll start with a roll call vote. Member Danley?
Here.
Member Fisher? Here. Member Miller?
Present.
Member Russell?
Here.
Member Sorensen?
Here.
Is here virtually. Member Toll?
Here.
And Chair Peters?
Here.
All right, and we have a quorum.
Okay.
I'm gonna read that.
A quorum of the PCZBA is physically present at the meeting. In regards to Member Sorensen, a notice was received by a member of the PCZBA in accordance with village policy, and Member Sorensen will be deemed authorized to attend the meeting electronically unless a motion objecting to the member's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and approved by 2/3 of the members of the PCZBA physically present at the meeting. If no such motion is made, then Ann's request to attend the meeting electronically shall be deemed approved. Is there such a motion? Hearing none, Ann's participation electronically is approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Always late.
And that is not true. Always the first one here.
Oh, good, Courtney.
So sorry.
Take a breath. We'll let Courtney get situated.
Yes.
Well, I guess what we could, we'll do a few things. Agenda item number 2, non-agenda items and visitors' public comment time. As the public is aware, we allocate 15 minutes at the beginning of each of our meetings for any member of the public to address briefly any concern or question that they may have. Anyone present wishing to approach? Anyone virtually?
If you are interested in giving public comment, please raise your hand on the Zoom meeting. It does not appear so.
Okay. Agenda item number 3, consideration of the March 19, 2025 meeting minutes. I trust everybody's had a chance to review the minutes. Any proposed revisions or other changes? George?
Just had one on page 6. And I'll
All
give you, Clara, I'll give you this, but I'll
Okay.
read. On the top of page 6, on the top of the paragraph, the sentence reads, Member Fisher asked how many homes would be considered heritage lots, and Member Russell noted that there are approximately 7, but, and I'd like to change the end of that sentence, but a couple hundred additional buildable lots are possible based upon the latest version of the comp plan.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Danley? Nope. Member Frederick? I have just 2. Page 4, top of, well, the first full paragraph, line 1. We're talking about revisiting concerns Mr. White raised. And I think it probably should have been a reference Mr. Stolzenberg raised.
Okay.
And page 4, first full paragraph, line 1. And then page 5, first full paragraph, second to last line. Chair Peters stated he does not believe this issue will not be resolved tonight, and I think it will be resolved tonight. So, thank you. Any other proposed revisions? Hearing none, is there a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve minutes with the revisions.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't present, so I'll abstain.
All right. Okay, agenda item number 4. Ms. Gable, if you want to provide an overview, please.
Yeah, in regards to the residential variations for 1800 Shore Acres Drive, the public hearing should again be continued to the May 21, 2025 PCZBA meeting. A motion is required to do so.
All right. Is there a motion, please?
I move to continue this hearing to the next regular meeting of the PCZBA.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Okay,
All in
Roll
favor?
call. We should roll call.
Or roll call?
roll call. Member Danley?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Miller?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Member Sorensen? Member Toll?
Aye.
And Chair Peters?
Aye.
All right,
Okay, agenda item number 5, please.
yes.
Go so quickly.
Kathleen Yarrington, owner of 555 Moffett, applied for a minor variation from section 10-5-3 yards of the zoning regulations in order to construct a 10-foot by 30.75-foot screen porch addition that will encroach into the required 20-foot corner lot side yard setback by approximately 2.78 feet, or about 13.9%. 555 Moffett is zoned R4 Residence District, and Ms. Yarrington is in attendance to present her plans. And as this is a minor variation, the PCZBA has decision-making authority on this matter.
All right, Ms. Yarrington, are you present or representative? Present? If you wanted to take the mic and we'll swear you in, please. If you could raise your right hand, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and your address for the record, and then please
Okay.
proceed.
I'm Kathleen Yarrington. I'm the owner and full-time resident of 555 Moffett Road.
Okay.
Can I do my statement now? I'm here tonight to formally request a setback variance to allow for the construction of a screened porch addition to my home at that address. The west side of my home, facing Moffett Road, does not meet the current setback requirement and is grandfathered in. As you can see from the plan submitted for the building permit, the proposed porch addition would follow the existing west facade of the house and thus extend slightly beyond the current setback requirement for the west side of the house on Moffett Avenue, with an overage of less than 30 square feet. The addition falls well within the current setback requirement on Center Avenue. This three-season room is designed to enhance the livability of my home by providing a comfortable, sheltered space to enjoy the outdoors during the warmer months. Given that my home is on a prominent corner in the village and on the 4th of July parade route, we've taken great care to ensure that the design of the addition complements the existing architecture and appears to be original to the house. The proposed addition has been carefully designed to minimize its impact on the 2 mature oak trees closest to the structure while enhancing the usability and aesthetic of my property. The screen porch will be supported by small piers instead of a full foundation, significantly reducing ground disturbance and preserving the integrity of the tree's root systems. Additionally, the porch will feature raised decking, allowing for adequate water infiltration and airflow to the tree roots, ensuring their continued health and stability. I've used Eagle Tree Service exclusively for the care of my trees since I moved into the house 10 years ago and have consulted with them to ensure best practices for tree preservation are followed throughout construction, and you are in receipt of a letter describing their evaluation. Granting this variance would not negatively impact neighboring properties, nor would it alter the character of the neighborhood. The addition is modest in scope and in keeping with the intent of the zoning regulations, while allowing for reasonable use of my property. I appreciate your time and consideration and respectfully ask for your approval of the variance.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll adopt and incorporate by reference the standards for variation that you submitted. Any questions from the commissioners? Who'd like to start? Yep.
I don't have any questions. I think it looks lovely. I understand the legality of side setback versus, visually, the perception is different than the legality, I guess, of the setbacks. So for me, the fact that it doesn't change along Moffett Road, I think is wonderful. The fact that it stays within the setback on Center, you know, there's the other houses, when you look down the street, either direction on Center, protrude out more than that will. I think it's great that you're working with the trees to try to maintain the two of them and everything. And it looks like there's neighbors' support in the letters, so I'm in favor of it. I think it looks like a lovely addition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Anyone else? Ms. Sorensen?
Anne, I think you're muted.
I got it.
There you go.
It's slow, but I got it. I agree. I think the plans look lovely, and again, or echoing, appreciate that you've really done your homework on this with your presentation. The only request I would have, which is beyond what we're really doing, is if the oaks, as they are getting older, if you would reconsider planting an oak tree, that would be lovely.
Absolutely.
But I have no issues with your addition. It's lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sorensen.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
No objections from me. I think it's
Yeah.
great.
I was favorably impressed also, so. Any further discussion?
No, thank you. I think we all could use a screen porch or two, so. No objection. It's lovely.
If we could have a motion, please.
Move to approve the requested relief.
Thank you.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, could we have a vote, please?
Yep. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Miller?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Member Sorensen?
Aye.
Member Toll?
Aye.
Member Danley?
Aye.
And Chair Peters?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Motion passes. What would be next steps for Ms. Yerington?
So this is one that the PCZBA has the decision-making authority over, so we will be in touch, but she would be able to apply for building permits.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yerington.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Where's my front page?
Okay, agenda item number 6.
Yes.
Yeah, if you could introduce, please.
Yep. At 570 Evanston Avenue, Block 3 LLC seeks, 1, a zoning text amendment to allow a planned mixed-use development, or PMD, by special use for properties zoned in the R4 district that are contiguous with the central business district and located at lots 4 and 5 in Block 3 at the northwest corner of Scranton Avenue and Evanston Avenue. That's the first request. 2, a special use permit for a planned mixed-use development with certain modifications. And 3, a variation from the zoning regulations to allow a building that exceeds 30 feet in height and 2 stories. 570 Evanston is zoned R4 Residence District, and as you will recall, the PMD tool is meant to allow for flexibility in and around the central business district and would allow for modifications from the PMD minimum lot area requirement, as well as the R4 zoning regulations and also the fence height requirements, all of which are proposed. And the applicant is in attendance to present their plans. The PCZBA is a recommending body on these matters.
Mr. Dobbins, if you could raise your right hand, we'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and your address, and then please proceed.
Tom Dobbins, I'm the architect for the project. I happen to live in town, 403 Evanston Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, things are going much faster. We have a few people planning to attend. They may miss the presentation. That's pretty impressive. So, is it possible to shrink that, Clara, so you can get the...
Yeah.
So we are up in front of you for the third time. I think everybody has been here. Jill, I think you missed it, but you probably have seen it. So I'm going to do the best I can not to regurgitate a lot of the information. You guys were favorably impressed. That's the last time we were here for the second workshop. That's why we're back. So hopefully you haven't forgotten about us and you'll feel the same way tonight. So what you're going to see tonight is substantially the same building that you have seen before. There are some changes, and there's certainly been design development as a result of putting them on CAD and developing floor plans. Frankly, as I've said before, we were trying to go slowly, frankly. Not sure if you guys would be supportive, frankly, not sure if the neighbors would be supportive, and we didn't want to spend a lot of time and effort in case the news was negative. So the next slide, I guess putting this vertically maybe wasn't such a good idea. So this is a project description. Some of you may read it. I'm certainly not going to read it to you here. It's basically summarizing what we're trying to accomplish. So next slide. So this slide is labeled, "Why are we here?" Okay? And this is something, if you remember from my previous presentations, we are here to a great deal because the village is supportive of multifamily on Block 3. I've said it in the workshops, I'll say it again now. If the village was not in favor of, at least conceptually, multifamily on the entire block, including the corner that we're referring to, which is 570 Evanston, we would not be here. If the village wasn't supportive, there'd be no reason that we would even propose this at all. The property owners, Jason Tromley is here. I think Courtney may come later as well. We all believe the highest and best use, and the comprehensive plan pretty much agrees with us that the highest best use is not single family on this corner. As you guys well know, multifamily has been proposed on this block in this corner many, many times in the last 10 years. And the property owners, of course, want to maximize their value. They are not developers. They're not here to maximize profit. They're here to make sure that their property value is maintained. The truth of the matter is, when the bank building condominium project was proposed and approved, you could argue that that diminished their property value as a single family piece of property because of the size of the building. But again, they didn't complain. We're not suggesting there's hardship here, but I think that what we're proposing here is certainly going to provide the best value for what they have in mind. Now, I put something in a box. So we are here seeking zoning relief from single family to multifamily. How are we going to do that? Clara kind of summarized it as we went along. It certainly sounded like we're asking for a lot of stuff, right? I mean, we got variances, we got modifications. It's really all about, and again, if we were here for the first time, not having had some feedback, I would try to defend all of these in great detail. I will if needed, but we've talked about a text amendment to create a PMD, and so I think you guys all know what that is. We are asking for some modifications and variances. I've learned a lot about the ordinance, frankly, a lot today, as a matter of fact, because we had some last minute back and forth. So within the ordinance, we are asking for some modifications. The modifications include, I guess, size of lot. It includes some setbacks and some restrictions within R4. It also includes asking for an 8-foot high fence instead of a 6-foot high fence. That may strike you guys as a bit odd. Lee Nystead specifically asked for a decorative fence and higher if possible. So we're honoring that request. I certainly think it doesn't do any harm. I'll show you where that fence would go. We're just proposing that along the north property line from the west corner over to the large evergreens. And then we are asking for a couple variances. The variances are 3 stories tall, partial 3rd floor, and height. As you know, if you're doing a PMD, 30 feet's the maximum you can go. We are asking for 34 feet. Now, we think we're well within reasonability because of the bank building property. They were granted 35 feet or the same variances and a partial 3rd floor. One of the big reasons we're back is that you guys gave us some favorable comments and recommended that we do come back and we pursue the project. Had you not done that, I'm not sure what we would have done, but we were pleased to get favorable comments at the last workshop, which was in December, so we're back. Take advantage of the unique opportunity to shape the entire block. This ship has sailed a bit. Frankly, and you heard me say it at one of the workshops, we rushed a bit to try to develop this corner property with the bank building property, so we could integrate it, coordinate it, blah, blah, blah. Well, the burden is falling mostly on us for that. We're not complaining, but the fact of the matter is that project's approved. So for all intents and purposes, this presentation, even though the building is not built, we're assuming it will be built, okay? The adjacent neighbors and community support are overwhelmingly supportive, okay? Not unanimous, but overwhelming. As you guys may remember, we got a petition with a couple hundred signatures, including all of the adjacent property owners. If you looked at your packet, the adjacent neighbors to the south and the east, the ones that I would argue are impacted the most, all wrote emails supportive of the project. We have been in communication with every adjacent neighbor, including Lee, including Jean. I don't see them here tonight. I don't know if they'll show up later. So we have made a big effort to make sure they know what we are proposing, okay? Deliver a sought-after housing project. We're here because everybody wants single-floor empty nester housing. As I've said many, many times, I wish the price was quite a bit less so some of my friends could afford to move in here, but the reality is this is a sought-after housing type. And there is currently a very high demand. No argument there. We certainly want to capitalize on it. So at the end of the day, why are we here? We're looking to gain your formal support for the project. We've been here informally twice, so I guess the rubber meets the road tonight. Next slide. So these are existing conditions. The fence that you see in the upper left-hand corner would be a replacement fence. That would be a decorative wood fence, and it would be 8 foot tall instead of 6 foot tall. That is certainly not a deal killer, but we certainly wanted to honor Lee Nysted's request. The upper right is a photograph of the back of Lee's house from the bank parking lot. The middle left is the corner, and we'll talk about the trees. It's a sought-after item to save as many of the trees as we can, and I think we've done a pretty good job at that. The middle right is the big evergreens that are separating the property from Jean's property. We're planning to save those, and ComEd is planning to put underground power lines using boring to save those as well. And then the bottom is just an aerial. Next slide.
Excuse me a second. The fence on the other apartment, how high is that going to be?
The west side?
Yeah.
Well, we're not putting a fence there because...
No. The other project's fence, do they have a
I
height?
believe it's a
Yeah,
6 foot.
Kind of silly, 6 foot and 8 foot. I mean,
You could make that argument, but we're just honoring the request. I mean, again, I might argue an 8 foot fence along their north property line might be a good idea as well because it's residential, but we're asking for it.
Okay, well, never mind, okay.
Yeah, as you all know, 6 foot's the maximum. So we're asking for an 8 foot. It is probably one of the least important things we should talk about tonight, probably.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Okay, progress to date, if you could roll. Okay. Go up a little more, I think, one more. There we go. All right, so what has happened on this particular project contextually and specifically to this project? Well, probably the biggest thing that's happened is the bank project has been approved, okay? Went through all the boards. We know what that looks like. It was deemed compliant enough with the comprehensive plan, which is transitional housing on Block 3. So that impacts what we're doing, no question about it. And I would argue it sets a precedent for height and partial third story and density. PCZBA workshops. So again, you guys know exactly what we did. We came here the first time, I'm not sure you knew what we were thinking, and I had done some, freehand sketches. The second time was a little more detailed, and everybody had time to think about it. But you guys agreed that multifamily housing on Block 3, including the corner, was an appropriate use. That's consistent with the comprehensive plan, and it is supposed to be transitional. The comprehensive plan, you're going to hear about the comprehensive plan, I think, for the second month in a row. If you were paying attention, the presentation last month actually showed our building in their presentation and suggested that it complied with the requests within the comprehensive plan. So I'm hopeful that, because there was a lot of discussion in the second workshop about what the comprehensive plan really expected there. There was green space and trees to be preserved. Well, we have green space at the corner, not the entire lot, and we're saving quite a few of the trees. So I think we're well within compliance with the comprehensive plan, the existing and the future. Market analysis, we've been talking to buyers. And we have interested parties, and we've incorporated some feedback into the drawings that are in front of you, including some last-minute change, which was a covered porch on the north side of the building that came in. A buyer for that particular condominium asked if that was possible, and so that's now included on the drawings, but it created some last-minute changes. Neighbor and community support. Again, we talked to everybody. Morawski's, Reese's, Kluchka's, Lemieux's are all supportive. I would argue that they're impacted the most because they all look right across the street at this particular project. Design development, last time we were here, we did not have floor plans. We now have floor plans. We have CAD floor plans, even though I will argue that they are still somewhat, certainly schematic, maybe more than conceptual, but there's a lot of detail to be worked out. But they are certainly far enough along to know that the building will work, that windows are placed, this building is not, it's kind of the antithesis of the Whitmer building. The Whitmer building is boxy, the floor plates are rectangular. Ours, we have pitched ceilings, we have sloped roofs, we have dormers. Our building is a Swiss watch. So it took a lot of work to try to make sure that ceiling heights and everything were gonna work, and what you see in front of you is pretty good there. Altoona and Whitmer collaboration, we're optimistic that the project will get approved eventually. We have some hard lifting left, but assuming it does, there's collaboration with Whitmer and Altoonian, especially Altoonian, in terms of construction-related activities and so forth. So we've been talking to them, and of course, we've been talking to them about ComEd as well. Next slide. Okay, so these are basically the objective concept and some of the characteristics. So the objective here, if anybody looked carefully at the plans, is we are trying to create a really boutique-y product here. So as everybody knows, we have underground parking. That was a development that came about between the first and second workshop. When you get out of your car in the basement, in the lower level, you enter your own private vestibule with a elevator. I call them lifts because they're very small elevators, and stairs. So you basically go into your own little area that's private. You've got a storage area off that. If you're on the first floor condominiums, you go up one level and you're in your condo. If you're on the second level, you go up 2 levels, you're into your second level condominium, and those stairs and elevator lift go up to small roof decks for the 2 second-story condominiums. That is the objective. We had a lot of, well, not a lot, we had some feedback from the beginning of the project that suggested that was a housing type that was going to be sought after, and we found that in fact it is. The concept here, now this is important. We believe, so the issue is the building, the building is big. Is it too big, right? Okay. We intentionally tried to align the front and the back of the building, the north and the south side, to try to make the block look integrated and coordinated. You know, people have said, why couldn't you do 2 townhouses, 3 townhouses? Frankly, I don't think that's good planning. I think that continuing the streetscape down Scranton Avenue and having the back generally aligned, the setbacks along the west property line is about the same as the bank building development. So it looks like it's the same massing. However, we didn't make ours boxy. I think by any objective standards, you would consider our design transitional. Why? We have pitched roofs, we have dormers, we have front porches, we have front doors, all the things we've talked about. A couple of the things that I definitely want to talk about. So, George, you see, we are not compliant with daylight plane, but we were sensitive to it. And the reason that that's important is for the properties to the north. We have made a big effort to try to make sure our development is not overbearing to the houses to the north. We are, and you'll see exhibits to this, we're well back from a theoretical daylight plane standard, even though if we get a PMD, there is no daylight plane requirement, but that's a good gauge to suggest we're not overbearing on that. We have one curb cut. If we did townhouses, we'd have multiple curb cuts. One curb cut's, I think, much preferable. And we're concealing the ramp to the underground parking. I think this is a big improvement, for example, over the Altunian Whitmer building, where you see the ramp off Oak. You would basically, our driveway slopes away down to the sidewalk to a garage door, and the actual, most of the ramp that goes down is hidden behind the garage door. Much better look than I think if it was exposed. What has changed since you last saw it? We reduced the size of the building. I took every inch out of this building we could. Now, you're gonna snicker, you say, well, come on, it's that big, you have to. A lot of what's driving this is what's happening in the garage. We have 8 parking spaces, and we have some geometry we're trying to get to, and frankly, we want 3,000 square foot units just for marketability. We have changed the outside masonry from limestone that you saw in December to brick. We have done that. We've made a couple, well, that's the big gesture, to try to blend in a little more with the bank building development. So we're planning to literally use the same brick if we can find it. That was not popular in some camps. Some people thought that it makes the building look a little heavier. The limestone that was proposed in December, some people like that more. But I think in terms of coordinating the entire block and integrating it, it's probably a good decision. We scaled down the front chimneys. We got some feedback that was a little too much. Design refinements. We addressed garage and stormwater stuff. I'll show you that on the drawings. And we added a covered porch on the north side as we talked about. Okay, next slide. So this is just a number summary, and George, I know there's some back and forth on this. Did you see are you seeing this for the first time? This slide?
You know, I can't even read those numbers from
Okay,
here.
so let me, mostly for George's benefit, okay, so.
I didn't want you to harp on those. I was just
Well,
correcting errors.
no, but we have nothing to hide. I mean, in other words, single-family setbacks are what's presented there,
Right.
okay? Now, I guess there's this nuance about, 50 feet and stuff that I had no idea, but it's not so relevant for this. But then there's the bank building CBD setbacks. So that's what I've been more focused on, right or wrong, because we're assuming what the bank property got or could do is what we should be able to do. So those are basically 2 reference points. When you do a PMD, as you know, everything is kind of semi-negotiable, okay? So you saw the building substantially with the same setbacks in December, and here are the proposed setbacks. 10.5 feet from the front, and by the way, that is 10.5 feet to the bay windows. It's actually 12 feet to the face of the building. As a reference, Altunian's building is 9.5 feet. The rear, I show 3 now. Okay, the covered porch is 10 feet over a setback, and no question. To the face of the chimney is 20 feet, and to the basically main face of the building is 22 foot. The corner side, we're at 20, which would be a standard front yard setback for single family. And then on the east side, we're at 11 feet, which is the exact same thing as Eltuni and Whitmer's building, and it steps back to 14 feet for about half of that wall. Height, we're only allowed 30 feet. Interestingly enough, it's 34 in single-family R4. So we wouldn't even need a variance if we were building a house 34 feet tall. But because we're getting a PMD, it's 30 feet, and we're proposing 34. You're only allowed 2 stories in the PMD. For a house, you can have a habitable attic, 3rd story. So, but because we're a PMD, we are asking for variances there. And then as you scroll down, these are just summaries of the square footage for reference. I don't, if anybody saw these and have a question, I'm happy to answer them. Next slide. All right, so this slide is called compelling information. What's compelling? Why should you guys be supportive? Comprehensive plan supports us, and your feedback from December was favorable enough to get us back here again, and I'm hopeful that that continues tonight. The bank property development approval, that's pretty compelling. You guys approved, the village approved multifamily, so obviously, and the comprehensive plan supports multifamily on Block 3, and you granted variances. I think a precedent is set there, so I think it's reasonably compelling that we should get it as well. I think our neighbor and community support is very strong. I don't need to tell you guys that you normally hear more about people opposing projects than you do supporting them. And I'm very proud, frankly, that the adjacent neighbors are all supporting this. They would all prefer a green space on the corner, no question about it, but they realize that they're not going to have a green space forever, and they're inclined to support this project because they think it's going to be a good addition. Interested Lake Bluff buyers, we've got a couple people that are interested. We only have 4 units, so a couple represents 50%, so that's good. Sensitive consideration toward adjacent neighbors. Daylight plane, of course, on the north side, I talked about that. Expanded setbacks, I guess this may be a little controversial. The fact of the matter is the north wall is 2 foot farther from the north property line today than it was before, not taking into account the covered porch that a buyer requested. Material selections, I think, are very residential. Underground parking, I think, is favorable in terms of the neighborhood, solitary curb cut, and virtually everybody working on the project is from Lake Bluff. Next slide. Okay, so stop right there if you would. So this is, I hope, the most compelling exhibit. So unfortunately, I can just tell this is a little confusing. So I'm going to walk up here if it's all right, and I'll speak loudly. So this is a roof plan. This is a roof plan of our existing building. I called it a Swiss watch. You can tell why I'm calling it that. These are pitched roofs. These are dormers. There's a lot going on here. We did this to break down the scale and so forth. This is, of course, the bank building development. I'll start here. So this is basically a rectangle, and this is the partial 3rd floor. That is 35 feet above grade, okay? And that's about 2,000 square feet. This wall right here that rings, I guess there's a cutout for the porches, but that wall is 30 foot 4 inches tall, straight up, okay? Our project, the highlighted areas here, this didn't exist. This didn't exist the last time you saw it. Because I made the building smaller and I have the geometry of the roofs and so forth, this ridge right here is now 31 feet tall. Last time it was 30 feet tall. So if we get a 34-foot variance, it falls under that anyway. But this, and so this is about 2 foot wide, times 70 feet long or something like that. That is over the 30 feet. This area here is another ridge. That ridge is designed to house the elevator. The elevator is perfectly centered under that ridge, so the elevator can get to the 3rd floor. This ridge is 34 feet above grade, okay? This is a small area where the stair and you come out upstairs, that up on the 3rd level, that is 3rd floor. That's the partial 3rd floor, and that would be over 30 feet as well. That total is about 880 square feet. So it's a very small area. I mean, arguably, this is not a big area either, but the way this is treated, and by the way, this 34 feet is the top. It actually slopes down, so it gets better as you get farther out. The more important thing is, let's start in the back. This ridge is 48 feet from the property line, the north property line. So that 31 feet is 48 feet from the north property line, probably 80 or 90 feet from Gene and Lee's house. The front ridge, which is along Scranton from the property line, is 37 feet back. And this is the parapet for the roof terrace. That's 20 feet back. That's only 26'4" above grade. My point here is, even though we're asking for a variance, we think this is very sensitively treated, especially from Scranton. Everything is stepped back, a lot of stepped massing here, so we think that is probably a very reasonable request. If you go to just scroll up a bit. I have a section here that shows the other way. So this is a section looking west. So this would be the north property line. This would be Gene or Lee's house. Here is the daylight plane along the north property line. We are nowhere near getting close to a standard Lake Bluff daylight plane. Here is the little piece of that roof I was describing that is over 30 feet tall, and here is the little piece of that roof in the front that is over 30 feet tall. You can see here is the lift going up to the roof deck that is literally centered under there because I need enough head clearance for the lift to get high enough. And again, this section kind of shows it. Here is the lower level. These are vestibules. There's a vestibule over here not shown. You can come in, you go up. This one goes through the first floor, up to the second floor into the roof deck. All right, so this is the rendering, of course. So this looks, I mean, it's refined. The two things that are noticeably different, if you were really paying attention, the brick is easy to pick up. The last time you saw this was limestone. The brick, albeit, you know, the color probably doesn't match perfectly. It's just because of the way it prints, what you're looking at. But the objective here, that brick would match Altunian's building exactly. So it's a combination of brick, limestone sills, limestone coping, stucco, painted wood, roofing. The chimneys are scaled down. If you went back and look at the other one, they were way more pronounced here. They were a little heavy-handed, so we pulled those back. And what is now represented in this rendering, way better than the last time, you can see the garage door over to the right. That garage door is about 3.5 feet lower than the finished floor. And the grade is helping us there. So the good news is the ramp becomes smaller, and you can see there is no objectionable ramp down on the outside that you would see. The ramp down is exclusively behind that garage door inside. So it has a much, much better appearance, and of course, just one curb cut. You can see here on the Evanston side, there's a shared porch with two front doors. Those would be the entrances to the condominiums on the first floor. And then you can see the porches to the left on Scranton. Those would be the entrances to the condos on the second floor. So they have their own entrance. They have a stair and a lift, room enough for a couple chairs. You would enter that, and if you're a guest, and you would go up to the second floor. If you're living there, you'd probably go right through the first floor all the way up to the second floor. Next slide. So this is the Plata survey. I don't know that there's anything to talk about here, but if you look carefully, you would see the grades are working to our advantage related to the driveway. One of the things that we are saving the trees, go back to the rendering if you would. So we tried to generally depict the existing trees. These three trees are existing oaks. Not in the greatest shape. We're 25 feet back from the sidewalk. We're going to protect those. I'm praying during construction that they survive, but we're gonna do everything we can. This is an existing tree, even though it isn't rendered much like an existing tree. Those 4 oaks we can protect and save. These are intended to show the evergreens that are between our property and Gene's property. We plan to save all of those as well. And then there's a couple trees in the parkway over here, oaks, that we would save as well. So we think we're doing a pretty good job of saving what we can. Of course, there are some trees that we're having to eliminate, but I think that's consistent with what the comprehensive plan is asking for and just, common sense. Okay. You can go through this one. Okay, so this is a block plan. And you can see here how we've generally aligned the north and south facades of our building with the bank building property. We did that intentionally. We think that that's good planning. We've pulled the building back 20 feet from the property line along Evanston Avenue. That's a comfortable front yard setback, probably more than the Lemieux's or Gene's house, frankly, along Evanston. And that allows us to save those trees. Those circles are existing trees to remain. What you see here it's really hard to see. You can see the green. So that's what was added this afternoon by hand, as you can see. The green dashes represent the R4 setbacks. So we are not complying with the R4 setbacks, except basically in the back, other than the covered porch. And then there's a light red line that represents the CBD setbacks that would be consistent with what is being used on the bank property. Next slide. Can you zoom in on the top numbers real quick, Clara?
For this one
Yeah,
here?
yep.
Okay.
So the site area of our property, I'm just going to remind you, I spent a fair amount of time on this. We are 14,250 square feet. We are 43% of the block. It doesn't appear when you drive by that we are 43% of the block because there's an existing old parking lot that was part of the bank for temporary parking. There's some bushes. So it appears like the corner lot is much smaller than 43%. Why do I point this out so much is, we're asking for a pretty good sized building. Well, we got a pretty good sized lot here, bigger than you might imagine, okay? We are 9.9% for FAR, and our building coverage is 52%. Then if you go to the left, we'll compare that against the bank building property. So they are 57% of the block. They're 1.31 allowable FAR. Now again, when you get a PMD, there is no maximum FAR building coverage. That all goes away, okay? And then the building coverage there is, I think that's 64. So we are less than theirs across the board. Next slide. This is impervious calculations. This was asked for by Jeff, of course. And the interesting thing is, if you look at the image to the left, that is the existing parking lot, which is existing impervious. That represents about 6,000 square feet. Our impervious, I think, is just under 9,000 square feet. But we, of course, expect to put underground stormwater in whatever size is deemed necessary by the engineers. Next slide. Okay, hopefully you can blow this up a little. So here you go. This is Scranton Avenue. The building to the left is going to be built, and it's a 7 or 8 unit condominium building, as you see it. Our building couldn't be more different, frankly. I frankly wish they were a little more integrated, but I think our building, by any objective standards, is transitional in the way that the comprehensive plan in Lake Bluff intended. It's transitional for all the residential architectural features you're looking at. We're incorporating that brick for obvious reasons, but we're not using a lot of it. There was discussions about trying to make our building maybe a little boxier, but frankly, nobody liked that look. So this is the side-by-side comparison of what we've got. I mean, and again, the colors and the exact proportions and things, we'll get some feedback from the ARB, hopefully if things go well tonight. But that is the streetscape along Scranton Avenue. Now, there is one thing, the numbers are going to be way too small, but our finished floor, so our grade has to be at, 682. We have to be at 682 because if we're saving the trees, we can't excavate down below the existing grade. So our grade at building is 682, our finished floor is 683.5. If you're paying attention to the drawings, we use finished floor on the first floor as 0, 0. So all our elevations are from finished floor. So if you look at the drawings carefully, our high ridge says it's 32.6, but it's actually 32.6 plus 1'6", 34 to grade, okay? Altunian's building is up about 6 inches higher, their finished floor. They're at 684, okay? And then they go up from there. So our finished floor is about their grade. If you look carefully between the buildings, this is one of my disappointments. Maybe there's still an opportunity, but we have, there's 22 feet between the buildings, 11 foot and 11 foot. They have a stormwater pipe on their side. We're going to have a stormwater pipe on our side. We have to get drainage going east or north-south somehow. It'd be nice if we could coordinate that in some manner so it was a little more integrated. I hope there's still an opportunity to do so. This is a schematic diagram on kind of how it would be approached. Next slide. So this, if you could shrink it a little, this is the site plan. There's a couple things that show here. You can see on the north side of the building is the covered porch that protrudes over the setback. And along the west property line, we show a dashed long rectangle. That would be where our stormwater storage pipe would be. So this is, and you can see the driveway coming in off Evanston and the ramp going down. We have condominium 1 and 2 oriented north and south. You'll see that the condo on the second floor, 3 and 4, are actually oriented east-west. And you can see the entrances off Scranton for condo 3 and 4. Scroll down a little, Clara, and try to zoom in on that front planter area in the front, if you could, right there. So we've also incorporated, I should have mentioned this, so in an effort to provide some public benefit, that's one of the things you guys are liking, we've incorporated a little area. We have a little room between the sidewalk and the property line, so we're proposing, paver walkway, some upgraded walkway with some public benches there, a raised planter in between that with some, high-impact plantings that the public could enjoy, so to speak. We have not done a landscape plan. We're hoping we can get some favorable comments before we spend the money on a professional landscape plan. But that front is new. That is different than what you last saw with a gesture towards some public benefit. Next. Okay, so this is the lower level. There's a couple things going on here. We have 8 parking spaces. We only 2 per unit. You only need 1.5. You can see the 4 private entrances down there. And if you scroll down a little, I want to show you, we are, one of the things that you'll be interested, go the other way, Clara, sorry. Mm-hmm. You can see we have an area for dumpsters in the upper portion of the plan, and we've got a little, well, not so little, an electric closet there. So that's where the garbage would be stored. And whenever the garbage would be picked up, we'd have to have somebody come and get them from the garage out to the edge of the street. You're not going to be able to get a garbage truck into the basement, so it's a little cumbersome from that. But there is no exterior garbage storage, and that would not be appropriate necessarily for a residential project, which we're considering this to be that way. The parking spaces are all 10 by 20 except for one. One is 9.6. The turning in there are generally okay, not great, but it is a private area. We have 24 feet in between, so it should be adequate. Next slide. This is the first floor plan. Again, for this group, the floor plan is not really relevant, but it was important to show enough development to know that everything we're proposing on the outside, the massing, the window, so forth, will work. But you can see generally condo is split one north, one south. Next slide. So this is the second floor. This condo is split east and west. You can see toward the front the lifts and the stairs. Those go all the way from the basement up through the second floor. By the way, all the units are 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, laundry, family room, dining room, and kitchen. Next slide. So this would be the partial third floor. We have a relatively small roof deck. Unlike the building next door, these roof decks are 14 by 15. And you come out and there's a little sitting area with a TV, and so it can have some entertainment value up there, but really quite modest. There is a powder room up there, but this would be the partial third floor under the front ridge. Next slide. This is the roof plan. That's the same plan you saw that had the purple highlights on, so really nothing more to talk about here. These are the front and side Evanston Avenue elevations. We rendered the front elevation as part of the streetscape, but you can see how the geometry here with pitched roofs and dormers and so forth impacts head clearances on the second floor. So that was all carefully considered. You can see the garage, excuse me, the bottom of the garage door, a couple feet below grade and 3.5 feet below finished floor over to the right. Next slide. This would be the west elevation and the, of course, north elevation. You can see the porch, the added porch on the upper elevation, which is the west elevation, going to the left toward the north property line. That really doesn't impact the neighbors there because they both have garages 5 feet from the property line, but it does protrude over the setback. And then the north elevation, you can see this covered porch to the right and the chimney, and that would be a big long dormer along there. Again, you can see if you look carefully at the bottom one, you can see the bank building vertical wall 11 feet from the property line. That's 30 foot 4 inches tall. I would argue that's pretty overbearing. That setback, as we talked about in the last workshop, that setback is only 10 feet, yet the north property setback is 18 feet. That seems like it doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. We are violating the daylight plane. You can see the angle. You guys have seen this many times for single family. The gable, the daylight plane is clipping the top of the gable, and if you had eagle eyes, you could see the dashes on the gable. For residential, you're only allowed 20 foot of that. We are more than 20 feet, but I think all things considered, compared to the Whitmer-Eltunian building, we're being pretty sensitive. Next slide. This is the same section before. This was a section looking west. One of the things we're planning to do is above the ramp, we're trying to create an enclosure for the air conditioning condensing units, so they are not outside. But we need to control sound inside the parking garage, but we'll introduce some fresh air, some circulation, so that should be good for the neighbors as well, and frankly, the residents here. And this is a section looking north. You can see the ramp going down and those condensing, conceptually where those condensing units go, and the pitched roofs and so forth. Okay? Okay, so we're getting close here. So what is the project impact? The project impact here is another name for what are we doing and how does it impact the neighborhood and so forth. So the first item is property values. You know, a lot of people would argue that a project like this would hurt property values. We think the opposite is true here. These units, as I've said before, are going to sell for $2 to $2.5 million, well above the single-family home values around there. Eltunian's condominiums are going to sell for $1,000 a square foot. So neither their project nor ours are going to negatively impact property values. You could make an argument it might improve them. The height, we are consistent with the current zoning. We could build a single-family home 34 feet tall, and we could have a third level up there if we wanted. Because of the way it's stepped back from the property lines, we think that it's not going to negatively impact the neighbors. The stories, same thing. Light and vent, the daylight plane, as I demonstrated on the north property line, we're not imposing on Lee or Jean's properties really at all, as far as I'm concerned. A single-family home could do much worse. And on the other adjacent neighbors, they're all across the street, so there's ample separation. 4 units is not going to negatively impact traffic. Not one neighbor has brought that up. Nobody on the board even asked about it last time, so I don't think there's any issue there. Parking, all the parking's underground, 2 per unit. We're actually adding 1 public space when you get rid of the curb cut along Scranton Avenue. Drainage, we will do all the things that Lake Bluff requires, including stormwater, much the same as what Eltunian is doing. Noise, no negative impact has been talked about. And there was talk early on about setting a negative precedent, that if we could do this, then other adjacent properties to the CBD could do it as well. I think everybody is comfortable that we've written the text amendment, not we, that's a royal we, narrow enough so it would only be this property. So I think there are no negative impacts that I'm aware of. Okay, so what do we do from here? We think the block should be multifamily, consistent with the density of Eltunian's project, supported by the comprehensive plan, the neighborhood support, and just the fact that you've approved that building already. The scale, massing, streetscape fully complies with the requirement to provide transitional housing. I think, as I said, I think nobody would really argue that the style of our project is transitional related to the single family. Careful consideration has been incorporated into the design to minimize impact to the northern neighbors. I probably beat that to death. Neighbor and community support is overwhelming. Not unanimous, but overwhelming. Significant effort has been made to preserve the mature trees and evergreens. Okay, so that's why hopefully you're going to be in favor. What do we do from here? We're looking for your support, of course. If we get your support, you recommend, I know you don't approve, you recommend, then we will go to the village board and ARB. We'll do a little more design development. We'll prepare a landscape plan and a grading and drainage plan. There it is. Courtney, do you want to say anything?
Sure.
Okay.
Can I just stand up like this? Or would you-
I think you need to come up here.
Yeah, we'll have to, yeah, we'll have
Hi,
to
everybody.
swear you in too.
I'm Courtney Trombley. Okay, swear in?
Yeah.
Sure.
If you could raise your right hand, please.
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please proceed. Identify yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Courtney Trombley. I'm an investor in the property, but I am a 40-year bluffer. And I would just like to first publicly thank Tom, because all of the overwhelming patience and support for, let's call it 20 different neighbors. He has not just been on the receiving end of emails, but he has composed so many emails, making sure that feedback was incorporated. A lot of patience goes in for a couple of these neighbors and a couple of their needs, and just time and time again, he was always very resourceful. And I think our plans, have only benefited from getting everybody's support of this. So we've come a long way. My mom is an intended user of this, and I just thought it would be very valuable for you guys to think about this product and the users that it's intended for. And as a 40-year resident in Lake Bluff, when my mom needed to downsize and had different needs, there was nothing. And my husband and I searched everywhere, and she had 2 rental properties from, a local owner, Lutweiler, and we were moving her around, and we were really trying to find product that could fit her needs, and also for her to be close to her 7 grandchildren. There was absolutely nothing, and nothing decent. So this is our user. This is the intended user. I feel like when I tell my story about returning to Lake Bluff, starting my family here, it's overwhelming how many people would love to have their grandparents close, or, maybe they have needs like a divorce situation or any other, kind of temporary housing situation. This is a great product, and it's something that my husband and I really believe in. And with Tom's help, we've been able to put together a really comprehensive packet, and I look forward to what you guys, have to say tonight. And we've hopefully delivered to your needs. It fits our needs, and hopefully yours as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbins. Very comprehensive and professional overview, so. Who'd like to start?
I'll start. So I'd like to start by saying some of the changes that you made, I think were really, I think they were very good. Particularly the scale of the chimneys, that kind of offended me a little bit in your first presentation. I'm glad the scale and height of those has come down a bit. Also, I think the brick is a great idea. It does integrate more with not just the bank building, but the rest of the CBD. I think, in fact, I would recommend trying to go more brick, but that's an ABR issue rather than this board. I do appreciate your sensitivity to the daylight plane, particularly to the north. I'm not concerned about the west daylight plane as much as maybe somebody would be because of the building that's going to be right next door. So I think that was good to point that out. Really, the relief that you're asking for, I think the concern about it becoming precedent, it doesn't become precedent. Whatever we decide, it does not make a precedent. Despite you arguing that because the Altunian project got all of this relief that now should be used going forward, it doesn't. This board makes individual decisions. We can assign relief to individual projects based on what we believe. So the precedent argument, I don't think, is something to be concerned about. So in this case, I think your height restriction or your height relief request is totally appropriate. The PMD, I think, is a good tool for this project. The only, I guess, one concern that I have is the 8-foot fence, which you said was a minimum issue. I agree with Member Miller. I think it should be integrated across that entire block. It should be the same height fence, whether that's 6 or 8. I could see an 8-foot fence across the entire thing. The concerns I have very low expectations that those oaks will live. I lived in a house that had an addition put on, similar setback to a very large oak, and this was maybe 10 years after the addition was put on, the oak fell down. It didn't die, it looked beautiful, and the oak fell down. So I've got very low expectations for those. I would like to have some sort of replacement plan in place if, in fact, they cannot be saved. I'd like to have that solidified. The screen and porch makes me a little bit uncomfortable. That is I think in this case, it works because of the garages that you stated. And I know I said it doesn't set precedent, but a 10-foot setback in this case does seem a little bit too close. I mentioned that the brick would integrate more with the neighboring building. I'd like to see it integrate more. So if you could use more brick, a singular fence, I think trying to make that whole block a bit more uniform would be a benefit. But other than that, I think your requests are I don't have any objection to your requests.
Thank you,
George?
Can we go next? Aaron, I agree with almost everything you said. It's rare.
It never happens.
I do have a question about the 8-foot fence. I think sheet number 15 is the one that best would illustrate that. One thing I would absolutely not be in favor of, Tom, and would vote against the whole project is if there's any intention to put that 8-foot fence all the way out to the property line on Evanston, because that would be a a wall in everyone's face walking southerly on Evanston.
Yeah, that would not happen.
so-
It would just be from, and again, this is
So it
a
needs to be,
request
like
by-
everything, it's
yeah.
the devil's in
This
the
would be
details.
From the west property line to the edge of the Evergreens, basically behind Nysted's garage and Jean's
Because
garage.
if it goes into the documents, we need to be clear that that's what it is.
Perfectly fine.
I don't really see the purpose of the 8-foot fence. The garages to the north block the whole view of the middle of the building.
Well, we don't mind blocking the garages out for our
Well,
benefit either.
So I'm just opposed to any idea that, the 8-foot fence would move easterly of that east wall of that eastern garage.
Yep.
Just because it would suddenly be a wall there where now there is a beautiful mature evergreen buffer. We're starting to come, just like Aaron, I'm trying to keep myself from treading into ABR purview. I, on the other hand, like the differences between the two buildings. I'm not too excited about brick that's the same. I'm not too excited about 4 benches out there. A couple would be fine, but these are things that the ABR will comment on, so we'll leave them alone. I think overall, I never, in my wildest imagination, thought that we could have these 2 projects where we could get over 30 additional parking spaces provided. Some folks remember back in the days of when the first projects came through, people were saying we can't afford to put the underground parking in. And it was something that always troubled me about the redevelopment of this block was the impact on businesses down at our east end, the impact on the library if we did not have adequate parking. If this block is redeveloped, and I think we certainly have between the 2 projects adequate parking, and it's because of the huge extra expense that both developers are undertaking to build the underground parking. So that's a huge plus. Same thoughts that Aaron had about the trees. I had a note here, especially with that evergreen buffer. I would like to see a requirement built into the approval ordinance that if those die, that they're replaced with, a 12-foot high evergreen species. In part, is you can do everything you want with your drawings, but if the contractor doesn't behave, if the village inspectors aren't aggressive, those tree roots will be abused, the oak tree roots will be abused. The evergreens have a good chance of surviving, and the 3 easterlymost oaks possibly could survive, but only if the contractor keeps off the root zones to the best, except where they have to be impacted. So, but that would be my one recommendation is to make it clear that the 8-foot fence, if it goes into the project, doesn't go too far east, and that that there be a built-in requirement that if the evergreens go kaput, and that the 3 large oaks go kaput, that they be replaced with a reasonable size tree. We don't want to replant them too big because arborists say they won't survive. The overall height, I think the 2 illustrations that you gave us, the overall height impact is really de minimis. I mean, you've got 2 tiny little triangular areas there. It's just not an issue in my mind. I think it's a perfect transitional design, the type of structure with the sloping roofs. And I think that's it. I'm not too excited about the covered porch either, but the covered porch is going to be mostly blocked by the westerly garage.
Yeah, you wouldn't see the covered porch probably from Evanston with the evergreens anyway, but it does go over the setback. I mean, there's no question.
Right.
Yeah, and the intention is it would be open, even though screening is not bad, but it's just intended to be open but covered. And as long as you've got this up here, if you don't mind, as a frame of reference, that those trees there, those oaks, are drawn accurately. So the farthest north oak is 14 feet from the front of the building. The next one over is about 16, 17 feet, and the farthest one to the south is actually not even on our property. That is drawn accurately. The property line is about 5 feet from the sidewalk. So, I mean, so we're outside the drip lines, but they're in danger, no question about it.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Miller.
For people who may complain about transition housing, I think you hit it right on the nail. This definitely looks like a transition, a big house, but a transitional house from a brick structure to private homes further east. So I commend you on that. I too am concerned about the trees and the bushes, and I think, again, I would add to what George and Aaron said about replacements. Even if it's, several years out, I think we have to count maybe some agreement. How far out would the construction be responsible for the trees? I don't know what that number would be. I was looking at the PMD standards. I think you did a marvelous job in incorporating the standards as best you can with the project. And I would like to see a curb cut bump out, not a curb cut, a curb bump out at the corner of Evanston and Scranton.
Knuckle,
Knuckle.
is that what they're called, George?
Well, the knuckle would only be on Scranton, right? Where you have parking?
Yeah, with on Scranton. I think that, because it would be consistent with the rest of the CBD with the bump outs. And that's all I really have to say. I think you did a great job.
Thank you, Member Miller. Member Fisher.
Yeah, my compliments on the changes that have happened, I think scaling it back. I also agree maybe a little bit with George in terms of transitioning more differently than trying to have more brick and that kind of thing. But again, that's outside our hands, that's ABR, so they can give input there. Trees have already been stated. I don't know whether there can be an HOA fund, as part of it. I don't know whether the developer can come back later, but I don't know how something like that would get funded over time. I do have a concern about that porch, so the more it can be minimized in some way, shape, or form, just because it does seem to jut out. And then I guess the one question I really wonder about, based on what we discussed with the Altunian building, is kids and traffic, kid traffic, walking, pedestrian traffic, and bike traffic. How do they know? I mean, I see the kids going on the bikes to the ballpark and stuff like that, and they're not looking, just so that, how do they get alerted that that a car is pulling out or something? And there's not even the ramp to kind of flag that. So
Yeah.
that's one concern.
Well, I would like to address that because I think we're in pretty good shape here. When a car pulls out, and now again, there's eight spots, so there's not a ton of cars, the traffic. But as you look at this, a car can pull out of the garage, the door can close, and they can stop before they even hit the
So the
sidewalk.
full car can get
Yes,
out.
and we don't have a ramp going down.
Right.
It's almost the antithesis of what the Altunian Whitmer project, and that's just a benefit of the grades, and so I think we're exponentially better off than what they're doing, but you still have to take care, obviously.
Right.
I mean, we could put a stop sign in it, that seems a little much, but if
Right.
that was important, we could.
Right. No, I mean, hearing that the car can fully get out helps, that it's not halfway in or something, and accelerating to get up a ramp or something. So yeah, otherwise, I'm in favor then with those things.
Thank you, Member Fisher. Member Danley.
Well, I think it's a lovely outcome. It really is. And I feel like your hardship is actually that the community thinks that it's a park, and that green space has been there for so long. And, they're not selling it to, the park district doesn't want it, the village, so it's always been for sale. And when, I think what really resonated, and I hope to others, will be that if it was a single family versus the multi, you know, that there would be just as many hardships. I'm sure the trees would still be an issue. The height is not very different, and your presentation was very clearly, you know, it handled everything that somebody that didn't know or just questioned, you know, you had such clarity. I don't have an issue with the covered porch. I really feel that you've got a buyer that's gonna be hidden. I feel like if there was a massing mod or something, I think people would really understand that it's not gonna be as big of an issue. And what else was I gonna say? Trees are always a big thing for us, so I agree. We just need to make sure that it's in there for replacement. But well done, and boy, you put a lot of work into this.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Member Danley. Member Sorensen?
Yes, thanks. I want to start out by echoing Aaron Toll's statement about a caution about presuming precedent. I think that's important always for the zoning board. That said, I really do like what you've done and how you've adapted, and in the big picture, I don't have any real arguments against your adaptations. I want to just comment on a couple other things. I do like the idea of the public benefit of creating a little bit of space where people might have a moment to sit down, or, you know, I can imagine that could be a peaceful spot on the block. And also, I definitely appreciate the unique look of your building. It is not the one next door, it is your own. And that's part of what makes the streetscape in Lake Bluff so attractive to so many people here and elsewhere. And one other thought, I noticed in your materials, the lighting would be not fully dark skylighting. I forgot the phrasing right now, but I wanted to encourage that you consider using actual dark sky features in deference to the fact that your immediate neighbors on the east, south, and north are zoned R4 for single family. I think that might be a really nice little added benefit to consider. But other than that, I agree with what my fellow commissioners are saying. Thank you for your hard work and working with the neighborhood.
Thank you, Member Sorensen. I would echo the comments made by the commissioners also with respect to all the hard work, the professionalism, how thorough you were to address the concerns or questions that we raised in the earlier presentations, and how you went through all the standards, and, you know, just a very, very professional presentation and history. With respect to the fence, would a arborvitae be an alternative? And that would kind of mesh with the other evergreens, and
Yeah.
it might not be as obtrusive as a,
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna put a bunch of landscaping back there as well. Arborvitae is probably the first choice, but that's, you know, if we get a favorable review, which it seems like we're headed that way, you know, we have a landscape architect that's prepared to help us with all of that, yeah. But there'll be landscaping along there as well. I mean, the truth of the matter is, and it probably seemed like I was making a joke, you know, the neighbors to the north are worried about what they're gonna see. Well, we have some of the same concern. The person getting that condominium with the porch, they're looking at the back of Lee's garage. So we'd like to screen that as well.
but I have no other comments. I think, you know, the architectural review board will, you know, review it at some point, but I'm favorably disposed also. Any further comment from the public?
If I could just make two quick comments.
Sure.
I submitted, so you all know me, I'm Jean Mimi Mills, 580 Evanston.
Yeah, we'll have to swear you in, so
Oh, go ahead.
raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please proceed.
I have two big things that I just want to put on the table. The first is, I'm not against having multifamily whatsoever. I feel like a lot of the narrative that we've had through this whole process over these last couple of months and years, honestly, we've been doing this for 5-7 years with no 3-on-3, has been that we were against multi-housing.
We are not against multi-housing. All we're asking is that you require whoever comes in to stay within the current zoning. The current zoning is a protection for the surrounding neighbors. And while there are things, and I'm sorry, I am a public speaker and I get very nervous in this room, and it's because it's my neighbors and my family. It's very bizarre, so excuse the dry mouth. But the whole thing is very emotional because this has been years in the making for us. And we got so much community support last time that said they don't want 3 stories on this property. And so my big comment is, what has changed? Everyone on my first petition, which was 500 plus, wants multifamily. We just don't want it 3 stories. Why can't that be? Why are we even considering this to give them that extra space? And what I'd like to say about that is that Mr. Dobbins very clearly said the first time the only reason they need the extra feet is for the one buyer that they have currently who wants access to the roof. And so the problem in the past, that's awesome, because that's actually not a huge problem. If they're so great, you're gonna get buyers. Other people had come in, and buyers or builders had said they couldn't do it financially without the 3 stories. It didn't make sense per square foot. Mr. Dobbins has clearly said that's not the case. It's just that they want access to the roof. So can we revisit that? And then my last thing, and it's so weird. The last thing that I'd like to say is the driveway. I think you guys touched on that a little bit from a security perspective. My driveway is right next door. I have 2 young new drivers. We have children, and I think you've all seen that I watch every day walk up and down the street, ride their bikes to school. It's a very busy intersection. You have 8 spots, but that's, are there only 8 parking spots? Yes. So you only have 4 units? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's changed, and I didn't know that. That's great. That is less, and that's better, but 8 for that corner is still a lot. And what I'd love to be considered is, why can't they all go in on Oak, which is in the CBD, not in a residential area where there's already gonna be a down driveway to the parking? Rather than putting it squarely in a residential area, a parking for multifamily, it doesn't make sense. I don't think it's safe. And I think that was all of my points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you clarify at all what you mean by?
Well, if you want to go up to the mic, please. Yes.
I just need a clarification of what you mean by.
Altunian has his on Oak going down. You guys could use the same one to go through to the other side.
Do we overlap to that? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean,
I was just asking for.
yeah, I mean, there's
what that meant for
two
the
different
access.
property owners. I mean, Altunian's not interested in that. Logistically, it's almost impossible to stop them from doing it, so.
What about Scranton?
Well, I would argue that Evanston is better. It may impact you, but from the standpoint of the community, I think Evanston's a better spot for that curb cut.
No, Scranton is much busier than Evanston in terms of how the kids go on the sidewalks. It's already, you're arguing that it's in the central business district. It's right there. It would be much, much better to have it either on Scranton or the other side. That's squarely residential between North Avenue and Scranton.
So also for perspective, I live at Scranton and Evanston also. And I think one of the busiest intersections is Scranton and Evanston, and I'm always shocked at, on Bluffinia or the farmer's market, that between Center and Scranton has parking on one side of the street. And, navigating, and it's turmoil, and it's incredibly busy. But, Evanston can be busy at times, but Scranton, I would argue, is, the main thoroughfare of our town. And so a curb cut on Scranton wouldn't feel appropriate for me. That, the busyness of Evanston would just remain also between. On Scranton. But it hasn't been used in 20 years, so there's no traffic.
And it was within zoning, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be worried about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Anybody on the web? Oh, Ms. Kluska?
Hi, sorry, the babysitter was coming at 7:45.
Yeah, if you could state your name for the record, we'll swear you in too.
Becky Kluchko, 131 East Scranton.
Maybe raise your
Yeah,
raise your right hand.
Here I am.
Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Absolutely, and you too,
Thank you.
Penelope. So we live at 131 East Scranton, which is across the street. We have been through all of the 3-on-3. We have been through this board multiple times. I have to say, considering the fact that we have given the approval, we have heard that there's approval given for the Whitmer Altunian building that is black. We don't know how many neighbors we're gonna have moving in there, am I correct? Because it's like a à la carte in that building. Is that right? No? They
Not this
figured it out?
project.
7 or 8.
4 units.
4 units in,
And the Altunian Whitmer is
Oh, the
7,
other one,
no,
okay.
the other one,
7 or 8,
7 or 8.
most likely 8.
Right.
Yeah, 8
So we have an established number of 4, and we have a central business district that has character, albeit brick, but it's coming into Block 3, which is the transition into the rest of our community. I feel like if we did all of the blocks with a certain amount of brick, with a certain amount of wood, with a certain amount, so that it looks nice, but there's a transition, we'd have a very boring town. I think that the brick that you've added is applicable and pretty and makes that its own character. Living across the street from it, it'll be nice to have the ambiance of the different facades opposed to just being solid. And in terms of having the driveways coming out on Scranton opposed to Evanston, living basically on Scranton and Evanston, I don't see how that could work to have any more traffic coming onto Scranton. So the Evanston, I think, is probably the safest, and I don't think we're giving our kids enough credit to stop and look when they come to a driveway. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that having that entrance there is fine. But I felt like I needed to come tonight just to show some support, because I know in the past there's been a limited amount, and I think that everything that they've put forward is good. The one thing that I also think we need to take into consideration is the oaks in our backyard are not quite on the fence line, but they're pretty close to the fence line. And when Lemieux's house was built, there was no consideration for like where the roots were and all the rest. And Jerry and I kept thinking, these oaks are gonna die. They're gonna die. They're going because of the way that the foundation was. And here we are. Lemieux's have lived next door to us over 25 years, I think. And those oaks are still standing. So I think if you have, and in this day and age, we have much better contractors and more comprehensive and cognizant of the facts, that I think that that's something that we have to worry about, but not be overly concerned. And with that, we're going home to take a bath.
Oh, thank you very much.
Question, I don't know if this is feasible, with the parking garage and the ramp, is it, when the door goes up, is it possible to put a light there that, so people know they're,
Want that.
oh, we don't want that, okay. I was just trying to help, that's
To
all.
answer it is possible, it may not be a good idea.
Just a thought.
You said the noise, big garage going up and down all day.
Yeah, but we would, we would make every effort to make it safe, and whatever, consensus there was on that.
Fine, there's just a question.
Yes. Yeah, if you could state your name for the record and your address, then we'll swear you in.
Absolutely, 325 Wimbledon Court.
Yeah. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
Thank you.
So, it's the first time I've seen this project. Aesthetically, it's nice. I've been following the process for the last couple of years, and a lot of the input were people like me, who was like, at some point, 10 years, hopefully longer, I'm gonna be looking to downsize, maybe condo, townhouse, something where, the maintenance is less. This project, along with the other project next door, this is not downsizing for me, unlike your grandmother. These are 3,000 square foot, $2.5, $3 million condominiums. I hope the board will be looking at other options, because there's probably a very few number of people like Bluff that can make that step. You want something smaller and reasonably affordable. And where these projects are nice, aesthetically nice, they're not addressing that need. And so I think you need to keep that in mind, because that was a lot of the input in the very early days when you had the open houses. And so I'd like to see that addressed at some point, because these projects clearly do not address that need.
No, thank you, sir. I think just as a matter of, for the records, that there's some other parcels in town, or even like when you look at Stonebridge, for example, and nothing's pending right now, but I think you'll have, perhaps smaller units.
Right.
I don't know what sort of architecture, if and when the time comes, but I think there will be those sort of options perhaps on the horizon, but.
I'm not a developer, I don't understand the numbers involved. But again, that was a big push for a lot of people. Hopefully not have to worry about it for at least 10 years, maybe longer, but at some point that option be nice and available.
Yeah, no,
If you look at the comp plan and the talk about the missing middle,
Yes,
that's really what you're talking about. And hopefully the village will have that in the future.
right, I mean, I
with these-
followed that, and I followed Stonebridge and the village-owned property next, down by Mariani's.
Right.
An area there. I was hoping that, you know, some of the downtown areas also be moving that direction, but it clearly is not. And these are not units that elderly, you know, as you get older, I can't take care of stuff. You know, 3,000 square feet, this is not for them.
No, thank you very much. All right. Any other discussion or comments from the commissioners?
If anyone online would like to speak, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. It doesn't look like anyone.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion, please?
Can we discuss how we make, what kind of motion we want to make, since there are several things on the table? Do you want to talk, Drew?
Well, to your point, I think there's some, I think I have like, I would say 4 open issues. So if I heard everybody right, the tree replacement plan would be, there's consensus on that would be a requirement. So I think the open issues are, I think there's comfort with a fence provided in that a concept plan can include a fence, and then the final can be worked out during final. So I think that's the easiest way around that.
Well,
If there's
with the
consensus-
exception that it does not extend all the way to the property line on Evanston, that's a wall for
Yeah.
anybody walking north. It's-
So, yeah, and so that's, if there's, then that's great, then that makes it even clearer. And then porch, no porch on the north side, I'm not certain that there's consensus on that. And then there's 2, I would call right-of-way issues dealing with the bench or planter area along East Scranton or a bump out on the curb. Staff didn't recommend that, and as far as the only public improvement is the burial of the utilities. That's one we've identified so far along Evanston. This is one of those, thinking about the prior project and where this is that if this is transition, then this should look more like the rest of the R4, where that type of public space is not present, or those bump outs. So that's kind of, that was our thinking. I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you, Drew.
I would agree. I don't think a public space is necessary or even desired. I mean, at least there, you know, perhaps more on the corners. I could see something, and more between the Altoona and Whitmer building and this project. I could see maybe something there, but in the entranceway of this building, I just don't see the benefit of that. As far as the porch, you know, I said I was hesitant. It's not going to be a real game changer for me one way or the other. I think it is a little bit close, but it's not going to cause me any objection. So if that's one of the 4 issues and my concern was brought up, then we can eliminate that from it.
And as Aaron just stated, I'm not excited about the porch, but I would still vote for the project with the porch. I'm not in favor of the bump out at Evanston.
Evanston, yeah.
I think was more appropriate at the other end of the block where we truly are into the CBD, that I would not be in favor of it. I think those are the only two issues.
So we're talking about the trees and,
Well,
Trees and
I
consensus.
support the other.
Yeah, I think there was consensus for the tree replacement plan already.
Yeah.
And I would add that I think the idea of having the final plan, the fence on the final plan be, figured out at that point. I would agree with George. I think it should be limited to, and I don't know if we need to say a certain setback as far as how far it extends eastward, but I would agree that it shouldn't go all the way, even to the corner of the proposed building. So I don't know if we need to indicate that in our approval, but it seems like something that could be done on a final plan.
Yeah, as far as the fence, I think that would probably be more appropriate for the final plan. The applicant at that point will be bound by the plan submitted, including the fence. So I think we would expect the rendering where they put the fence is exactly where the fence goes. That's what the board and this body is approving. And it would be clear that if it was outside of that, then it's subject to, various, we could put it in there, but I think it's more appropriate for final plan. As far as tree replacement plan, I do think that would be appropriate at this stage. What that looks like at this point, who's to say, but I do think we can add that as a condition that the PCZBA approves with the condition that, that we come to some agreement on a tree replacement plan for final approval. So, I think that would be appropriate. And then, as Drew mentioned, we did include other preliminary conditions that the village is also suggesting, such as bringing the utility lines. And ensuring that, just like we did for the Altoonian one, that it is explicit that they're bound by 4 units and such. So those are also in our preliminary ordinance as well.
Can I ask a question? So could you zoom in on the fence? We've talked a lot about the fence tonight. This is what we've drawn is what we plan to do, George. That is acceptable to you, right? You just don't want it to go underneath the evergreens all the way to Evanston.
Yeah, I personally don't want it east of that east wall of that garage to the north. And you've got it about right there, yeah. So.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure, as long as I've got you, that is what we plan to do. So if you approve it, I don't know the mechanism, but we don't want to extend it anymore.
Great.
And I want to say one thing. Gene, the idea you talked about access off Oak. Yes. We did broach that with the other developer. Yes. And it is extremely complicated when you're trying to manage both of those properties and how that works, but it was our idea as well. We were all thinking the same thing. One curb cut is better than 2, regardless. Yeah. So we tried to see if that could work. It's just it's impossible. I think with the legalities involved and people using that shared space and its separate property ownership, it seemed very difficult to manage.
Thank you, Drew.
So then our one condition is a tree replacement plan? Is that?
I think both the evergreens and the oaks, apparently.
Yeah, I think just generally that the applicant will, and the village will work together to craft a tree replacement plan, which again, we can talk about if we want that to be specifically included in the final plan. But I think just for a condition for development concept plan approval at a preliminary stage, just so we don't bind the applicant for, like 3 evergreens for this type. But I think there is general consensus that the PCZBA wants a tree replacement plan. The specifics of that, I think, can be dealt with at the next stage, the final stage.
Okay. Comfortable with that.
I just had one question for Mr. Dobbins with respect to the garage door. Is it a traditional 7-foot-high door? Or what's it gonna look like visually?
Well, we can go. It'll be a decorative garage door. I mean, you see them all over town. It's 18 feet wide, not 16 feet like most homes. And so there'll be some articulation. I think we've drawn it at 8 foot tall. The truth of the matter is the clearance to get into the garage is 7'6", but that, so actually, it'll probably look better than what's rendered there. Those white panels probably won't be there. You know, it'll be a wood door of some kind, either painted or stained with some glass architectural features, but 8 foot tall.
Okay, yeah, just sometimes visually looked a little shorter.
No, it's 18 feet wide by 8 foot tall. That's the plan.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the plans as stated with the added comment about the tree replacement that we discussed. Leave it at that.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All right, get out vote, please.
Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Sorensen,
Aye.
Member Toll,
Aye.
Member Danley,
Aye.
Member Fisher,
Aye.
and Chair Peters.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Yeah, next steps for the petitioner.
Yeah, the next steps will be for them to go to the ABR, and then after that, to the village board for development, concept plan. And then after that, they would be able to start the final plan process.
No, thank you very much. A lot of hard work and a lot of creativity. You don't want to go 6 and then up to 8 and then. Take a 5-minute break?
Recess, you should just say without objection. Without objection, we'll take a 5-minute.
Yeah, we'll reconvene at 7:55.
No objection. Thank you.
convene. So agenda item number 7. Ms. Gable, if you could provide an overview?
Yep. In order to construct electric vehicle charging stations in the target parking lot at 975 Rockland Road, SMJ International, or Tesla, David Connell, seeks an amendment to the planned commercial development governing the L2 Limited Light Industry District Zone property, an amendment to the final development plan, and a variation. The proposed chargers are located in the southeastern portion of the target parking lot as approved by the Architectural Board of Review. The applicant is in attendance to present their plans, and the PCZBA is a recommending body on these matters.
All right, if you could approach the podium, and we'll have you state your name for the record, and then we'll swear you in, and we'll be ready to go.
I am David Connell, on behalf of Tesla, from SMJ International. I am the applicant and the permitting agent for this project.
Could you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
What does SMJ stand for?
Great question. It's probably the initials of the owners. That's I've been there 5 years, and I don't know actually what SMJ is. They're a company based out of Wixom, Michigan. I work remotely for them. I live in Elmhurst.
But they're not associated with Tesla other than being hired by them?
Correct.
All right. Please proceed.
Okay, so as stated by Ms. Gable, we are proposing to, in the southern part of the large parking lot, I believe it's about 250 spaces roughly in that parking lot, are proposing 16 charging stations and the related equipment, the electrical equipment and cabinets to power the charging stations. One of the stations is ADA compliant, and we did, at the request of the ABR, move the proposed location south about 2 rows, and that's probably about the most remote part of the parking lot. Originally, it was 2 rows up, and they wanted us to move it because it was too close to the center driveway, which is probably the busiest part of that parking lot. And as I drove here today off of 94, I did notice that that part of the parking lot wasn't very well used. The northern end of that parking lot was crowded, but the southern end was pretty scarcely populated at that time. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, it's a modern amenity to benefit the village of Lake Bluff. Probably some people traveling on 94 would come and use it as well. It can be used by not only Tesla vehicles, but other brands of electrical vehicles as well. To the left, you can see the equipment location, and what is being replaced is a little bit of a green island that has 2 maple trees, and so there is some removal of that green space and 2 maple trees. The transformer in the middle is surrounded by 17 arborvitaes for shrouding, and then the cabinets are within a what I think they call it a Trex fencing system. The 2 trees being removed will be replaced. One is on the southern end of the parking lot, and then one is slightly north and east on another island that's in there.
Who'd like to start? Ms. Sorensen. We'll use the Socratic method.
There you go. I am wondering, just in general, the security of this. I mean, obviously I see these out in places all over, But how is it from your perspective?
It is a 24/7 operation. There is an additional lighting structure that is going to be installed, I believe, between the equipment and where the charging stations are. So it'll be well lit during the night.
Okay. Do you have an equivalence? Can you describe what that lighting will be like?
Don't know if it's on the plans. If you scroll right in the middle there
Okay.
is where the one of the lights will be, and then also to the right there. So I think that's a so it will be designed to match as close as possible other lighting that is within the parking lot for aesthetic reasons.
Okay. So it's essentially another, tall commercial parking lot sort of light.
Correct.
Okay. And you did say that all electric vehicles, regardless of manufacturer, are able to use this.
So, would you like me to join? Sorry. I'm on behalf of Tesla.
Yeah, we'll have to swear you in also, please. Yeah, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
And if, state your name for the record.
My name is Ramadan Monteria. So currently there is only a certain handful of electric vehicle manufacturers that can access our chargers. All of that is public information right now, and as the time goes on, we are opening it up to further to other companies as well, other manufacturers. I can pull up the list if you would like me to, or if you would just like, but essentially there's an adapter that the users can use right now to attach on to the end of our chargers. And a lot of manufacturers that are currently creating their own version of electric vehicles are going to have our NACS adapter built in, so our charger will go directly into their car and charge no problem.
How long will that transition take so that virtually any type of vehicle could charge it?
So there's a timeline based just to make sure that current users aren't going to feel like the network is being choked by everybody that we're signing on. And there is a timeline and agreement and contract, I believe, with all those manufacturers. That's, like I said, it's all kind of distributed over time. I don't know all of that off the top of my head, but there are a handful that are currently open to our networks right now.
Is there any way, I could talk to you, Mr. Tesla. I have one, and I've gone cross-country in them, and it's amazing. I've gone to so many charging stations and every 2.5 hours or so. What I've noticed, though, is there's no garbage cans, and then I'm also going to go back to security. Are there going to be cameras there, or will you be putting any cameras in that area just in case for security reasons?
We do not typically put cameras or any
I noticed
type
in Los Angeles they did, or sometimes they even have little like snack stations and,
That's more-
that's more remote. That's more like when you're building the building for charging versus in a parking
correct.
lot.
Yeah,
I get
so when
that.
we're typically going and, creating an agreement with the property host, in this case, it's Target.
Right.
There's certain standards we try to set ourselves to. For this one, I do believe the plans already do incorporate recycling and trash bins there. That's one of our main things that we do bring up and address with them. And then we also try to address as best as we can any security type of feel where we want to light up the area without obviously creating too much light where it interferes with other neighboring properties, but we want to make sure our users do feel safe. We don't want it to feel like it's a dark and gloomy area that they're
Right.
charging.
Never had that issue.
That's what we try our best to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have to remember this is just for energy efficiency, electric vehicles, which, it's positive. It's just getting bad press lately, but that's a separate issue, unfortunately. So I really don't have any issues at all. I feel like it's a need in our community. And, I'll go to Trader Joe's and they don't have a Tesla, but there are every car has an adapter already. So I could plug into any energy, doesn't have to be a Tesla. And now what you're saying is it's going to be the reverse, which is going to take place. So it's just once you cross over into the electric world, everyone, there is a lot of adapting. But there's not a lot of Tesla charging stations. Highland Park, I think, is the closest one right now for residents in Lake Bluff, if you don't have it in your home. So, and you're right, it's a nice relationship with Target and the highway. So the only issue I had was I was curious about, the cameras and the garbage cans, and just seems like there's just not enough of that across country.
Yeah,
let alone Lake Bluff.
Garbage cans, lighting, all those are really main focuses. We try to make sure that we're not trying to, create any just waste floating around as people are,
Right.
coming to charge. We set up standards with the property host as well to try to make sure that that's all regulated. Customers can also, report any type of concerns, via social media or directly to their websites for Tesla.
So who's responsible? Would that be Target? Or if it's a joint thing, an agreement, are they the ones picking up your garbage?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to double check to see what the agreements are. A lot of times, sometimes it's written in with the property host, or it's something that Tesla's, service team also takes care of.
I have one more question. So you said that a couple trees are going down, and I know you're placing with bushes or whatnot. Is that an ideal location, or can we shift it a little? I didn't clearly examine the plan.
We were relocating any trees that we were removing. And then we were putting up landscaping around the utility transformer and putting up the Trex fence enclosure to just screen our equipment. That's not the chargers, but the cabinets that feed the chargers. And those are behind security locked with like the code gate entrance. So there's nobody that's going to be entering those without that code.
Right, I get that. I guess I was just thinking if we shifted it in any way that we didn't have to tear down any tree.
I would have to see a little bit further detail. I know we shifted this way because that's where kind of the board, the last hearings that we attended, they wanted us to go that way.
Okay. No more questions.
Thank you, Ms. Daly. Ms. Fisher?
You answered the question. I was just wondering whether or not it was only Tesla or whether the other cars, other cars could use it. So I'm happy with knowing that it's a more universal fix.
I have nothing to add.
Member Russell?
I think it's a great spot. I think the ABR did the proper thing. That corner is no man's land. It's an oversized parking lot. And I think it'll provide a little boost to our restaurant owners in the outlots. I've only ridden in a Tesla once. We were coming down 94. The owner of the car needed a charge. We pulled in and we walked across the street for an hour to a restaurant and had lunch. And I suspect the same thing's going to happen here if people are charging. I would, great comment about Ms. Stanley about the trash and recycling. I suggest that be a requirement of the approval, that there be a trash can and a recycling bin there. I'm only aware of the one can right by the Target entrance at the north end of the lot.
This already included or no? Good question. Usually that's typically a standard, so anything we're usually proposing has trash and recycling in there. If it wasn't already included, that's something absolutely we'll make sure to include, but I thought we had something.
That's all I had.
Thank you, Member Russell.
My only comment, I guess, question is more out of curiosity, because I'm sure there's standards for this, but from a fire service perspective, is there a manual shutoff for the entire set of chargers in the case of, say, like an overcharging electric car that we would then have to discharge before actually doing fire suppression?
Are you talking about for the fire department?
Correct.
To do that?
Correct.
That's something a lot of times when we go through permitting, if that's something that they require, we have no problem putting in a shunt trip or anything like that, like a main Knox box or something that they can access, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I guess, on that same note, you said the enclosure was a keypad access, is that right?
Yeah, it's a code.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
We provide that to the fire department as well.
Very good.
If that's probably your question.
Yes,
Yeah,
good question.
yeah, that's very standard right away. Any type of enclosure that, if God forbid something happens, we provide to the fire department so they're able to get in there safely and not have to break down any type of door.
great, thank you.
I had a couple of questions, or what's the relationship between Tesla and SMJ and Target? I mean, do you have a relationship nationwide then with Target? Is that the track?
Target's just been one of our portfolio partners that are willing to, allow us to, build out a charging station out on their property. SMJ is an architecture and engineering firm that we use to draft the plans and assist for permitting, for drafting, for, anything along those lines, but yeah.
Okay. And then the issue of security, I mean, the proposal is 24/7, I think you said.
For what part, I'm sorry?
24/7 as far as access?
Yeah, it's an open parking lot. There's no gate or anything along those lines, yeah.
Okay. Any history of security-related issues at these sort of facilities?
No, I mean, it's, like I said, it's a parking lot where people come to charge their cars. We try to light it up as much as possible with the lighting. We try to meet the same, use the same fixtures or make sure we meet any code that the jurisdiction is asking for, whether it's, directing the light so it doesn't kind of light up the entire parking lot, but the user still feels safe and, there's no type of security concern there.
And you're contemplating lighting similar to or whatever's in place at
Yes,
Target?
yeah, we
as
already
far
are
as-
proposing lighting with this build plan, yes.
Okay, it's not gonna be significantly brighter.
We try to match what's on site.
Okay.
I have a quick question. How do you determine how many charging stations that you need, and are you doing enough? How do you base that on the number of slots?
Yeah, so we have like a network plan model that kind of has an algorithm built in based on, if we notice one charging station, let's say it's Evergreen Park, Illinois, there's an existing charging station there. I believe it's 8 to 12 stalls. I don't remember off the top of my head, and we can, we have direct data that shows when there's waiters, how long they've been waiting.
Okay.
If it's near a major highway or anything like that has a lot of traffic in that direction, and we notice that there's just a lot of congestion in the same charging station, we try to build in another area to kind of relieve congestion, address customer concerns, and it's like I said, it's a kind of we have a whole algorithm that tracks all of that and suggests, anytime we're proposing a new charging station location, it suggests how many stalls, and then we always keep an eye on anything that we're building, whether it was an oversized or undersized, and we try to make sure that we correct and adjust as needed.
What percentage of the traffic do you think will come off the tri-state?
I don't know that.
You haven't done those sort of studies?
Not myself publicly or anything like that. I don't have that metric off the top of my head.
You have 41 also, so you got two major roads.
41 in Waukegan. I'm just a little bit concerned of potential impact during the wee hours of the night. I think during the traditional hours, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., it doesn't really bother me, because I think it's going to be.
Well, just something to keep in mind, these chargers are typically not somebody's only source or way to charge their Tesla vehicle or any type of electric vehicle. A lot of times our users are encouraged to have charging at home as well, where they could charge overnight. If they need to, obviously in an emergency, or if they're going cross country or whatever they're doing, these are publicly accessible. But a lot of times, it just depends on situation. If I don't know what the actual traffic to these chargers are and how many users are going there to charge at like 2 or 3 a.m. You know, typically it's those, you know, sunlight hours or, you know, before 10 p.m. or something, yeah.
Drew, do you have any input from the police on something like this? You need to see a doctor.
The answer is no, we don't have experience with this, but there's no public or, you know, publicly available chargers in the town. We posed a question to the city of Lake Forest. They have some that they've installed by their train stations, and we're asking, we don't have that data yet. That was in fact one of the questions I had asked Clara to ask you all, was like, you know, what is the average users, or is most of the users in terms of charging taking place between 7 a.m. and midnight? And what is the actual usage in these off hours if there are security concerns? I can't imagine it's peak. I imagine it's going to follow users of the stores and those in the area, but can you offer some real data for that? Since you're the owner of them, and I'm sure you have all that data.
Yeah, I'm sure it's available somewhere, but I don't know. I think that's gonna vary a lot of times based on, you know, like I said, user requirement and just how busy a site will be. But typically, it's like I said, during those 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
And if you're down at 25% battery, how long does it take to charge?
Go ahead.
No, I'm just
I do
kidding.
not personally own a Tesla. Yeah.
If you
I know, shocker
precondition-
here. But
You're on the record, remember?
No, but if you precondition the battery, right? So you plug in where you're gonna charge, it could take 30 minutes max, you know, but 30 minutes, because you never get down to the lowest point. But like the other day, I forgot to precondition, it took me 40 minutes. So it definitely saves a good 10 minutes if you can plug in where you're going next. And on your screen, it'll show you and it'll advise you where to go to charge. You know, you never really want to get that low, but it's happened. But yeah. So you're not really there that long, right? You're there enough to get a sandwich or something else over it wherever you're near.
that's
And,
why a lot of times we try to like, sorry to interrupt you. We try to put it like where it's like, you do have either like a fast food spot or else a shopping center, like a
Right.
Target where you go in there for 20, 30 minutes, so that by the time you come back, your car's at the percentage that you need it to be, and you're able to continue on with your day.
Okay, it is that quick.
Yeah, you don't, these superchargers, they're not long dwell time chargers where you're plugging in for a couple of hours or anything along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, those are the only questions I have. Obviously, I don't have an electric vehicle, so no experience. Any other discussion? All right, do we have a motion? We're recommending body in this matter.
I move to recommend the village board approve the requested relief in the form of the attached approval order conditioned upon the provision of a appropriate trash and recycling container and service therefore. I don't think there's a can out there in that corner of the lot. I know no Tesla owner would ever throw trash on the parking lot, but I think there should be a container there.
Yeah, like I said, we have no problem. That's honest, it's become our standard now, trash and recycling. Or some sort of waste management with the property owner and everything.
Second.
If I may, I'd like to just add one other condition, that the lighting be consistent with the existing lighting at, in the Target parking lot. That's. Any further discussion? Okay, could we have a vote, please?
Yes. Member Russell?
Aye.
Member Sorensen?
Aye.
Member Toll?
Aye.
Member Danley?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Miller?
Aye.
And Chair Peters.
Aye,
All right, motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next steps for the petitioner, I guess.
Next steps would be going to the village board, and we can talk about that.
Is that the two-part meeting?
Yeah.
And then I believe that when I spoke with Mr. Croak, I can apply for the building permit in between the two meetings, I believe. Okay.
And if I may, just, how long does the process take once you start construction?
Once we receive permit approval and we coordinate with Target to make sure that we're not building during any type of blackout period for construction with them to impact like their holidays or anything like that. Probably take anything from 6 weeks to, 8 weeks, sometimes a little bit longer. It just depends on any type of, unforeseen circumstances, but it's not more than a few months.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, have a good evening. Thank you. Agenda item number 8, I guess.
Yes. All right. So in April of 2023, the village engaged Tesca and Associates as a planning consultant to update the village's existing 1997 comprehensive plan. Following engagement by the community, the PCZBA, and staff, Tesca has drafted the updated comprehensive land use plan. At its meeting last month, the PCZBA moved to continue the hearing to tonight's meeting to further discuss changes. Tesca and Associates has provided a memo in your packets detailing the changes that have been made. Tesca will not be in attendance tonight. However, staff will continue to take comments from the PCZBA and the public. And just as a note, there was the public comment that was provided in your packets from Peter White, who spoke last time, just wanting to get the some references to affordable housing updated, and we believe that's been addressed. I believe Drew also spoke with him, and my understanding is that he is fine with what's currently in there. And then we also received public comment late today that was put on the dais from Mark Stolzenberg. Again, this one is a small change, but he wanted just a wording change from saying that a structure of 2.5 stories would be appropriate on North Avenue across from single families. This is related to Block 2. He wanted it to say that 2.5 stories is the maximum on North Avenue. So that is the public comment we've received since the last hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Gable. I trust that everybody had a chance to look over the proposed revisions. Any questions or concerns with respect to the modifications up to page 56, Central Business District sub-area?
I had 3 very, very tiny comments before page 56. 2 of them were mapping errors, and one of them was the last one was after that, where we changed the number of parking spaces in the exhibit
Which exhibit, which page?
from 3 to 2. They didn't change the text to 2. So those are very minor.
Very minor, yes.
Very, very
Okay,
minor.
great.
Any other comments or proposed revisions with respect to those pages?
The only question that I have is, like, for instance, on page 53, it was talking about connection to Lake Forest, but it didn't really go in as much detail as they put on page 121, where it talked about it. If we have an earlier section that just kind of touches on something, could we maybe say, comma, see also page 121 or something, or just somehow link it so that people, I was thinking, okay, well, we didn't really hit X, and then all of a sudden, it showed up, 100 pages later or something, so.
Deb, yeah, which objective was
I
that
had a note
on
on
53?
page 53, just that I wanted to say, could we connect the sidewalk, let's say, to Lake Forest, or down to Lake Forest? And then, so when it's talking about the different sub-areas,
Oh, in the business park?
right. So I was thinking, okay, you know, can we add that in somewhere? But then we do say it later, you know, I kind of hit it on page 121 when we talked about it. And it did make a reference to that. Is there
Does the
any
table do
sense in
that?
trying to link them or no?
Does the table do it in the back?
Link them? Or,
121 is the tables yet.
Didn't link them.
so this is 53, and then 121, yeah, is not the,
Oh, I'm sorry, 121 is the table.
No, it's not the table
it's
yet.
not the
Okay,
table.
but, okay, well.
It's just the walkability
a
and bikeability.
separate, yeah, they touch upon each other, but they're two separate goals. The first one is related, I believe, to the business park, and then this one is the transportation section.
Can you go to the table really quick, please?
Yeah.
I don't know, it just seemed to come up a few different times, and I was just wondering if there was any point, plus or minus, to trying to tie the two of them together.
So this is the objective.
No, it wasn't in the table, it was,
No, I was just saying, can
No,
we put
but,
it, could you do
yeah.
it there?
oh, could you? Okay,
Link
got it.
them and say, you know, this is cross-reference against
Oh,
this and this.
okay.
I'm just trying to think of a way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, right now, how it works, we reference the fundamental planning goals, which are the
High level.
high-level goals, so you can see that those would possibly be connected, but I think you're talking about the sub-area objective of improving external appearances and developing pedestrian infrastructure, and you can see the planning goals, the fundamental planning goals are 2, 13, 18, 19, and then, yeah, I understand the connection
You know, what I could
there.
do is just send you a couple notes saying, okay, these were the areas that I thought could connect, and then you guys can think about, is there a reason to connect them? Or is it you
Okay.
know, on high level here
thank you.
and minutia here, and, you know, maybe there's no reason to connect them.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Anybody else with respect to those pages? I guess I just, on page 58, we still make reference to the Block 3 properties along East Scranton. I wonder if we should have an asterisk or,
We talked about that in terms of how it's dynamic situation.
yeah, very dynamic.
Yeah, so we did have new language that tried to be as reflective of the moment as we could.
We did, but we noted that that may change at the last minute, depending on kind of what happens with that,
Right, right.
and
yeah.
when this is brought to the board.
Right, when this finally, so we agree. Gotta get it right, but what does that look like? Yeah,
Yeah,
I think when, I guess maybe,
maybe we put a comma if not fully developed or, you know,
is that enough? I think that's, it can be that easy.
possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then going on to the next, say, 10 pages, and we're getting to the village-owned 10 acres. I still think perhaps we should have a little language in there that just raises the possibility of a park or some green space, not necessarily a formal park with equipment, but just a dedicated space where people could, in the neighborhood, congregate to some extent, because you're still gonna be, if it goes residential there, quite a ways from Blair Park, just to kind of memorialize that possibility.
And that's on page,
68, 69, I think, Clara?
Can you go to that, Claire?
Yep.
Sorry,
okay.
haven't memorized all of it yet.
Yeah, I mean, 68, 69 is,
Okay. Ah,
I just would like it to just be generally referenced to that possibility.
okay, so 68. So adding language about a park.
Can you go to the objectives? Is there objectives in that section? You go down?
Yeah, there are.
Scroll down?
Yep.
Yeah, here we go.
Dedicated green space that won't be developed, just a small parcel, you know.
Well, yeah, I guess it's slightly different, but the sub-area objective that talks about missing middle says with a focus on clustering development to maximize open space. But
So maybe we can add
those might be
a
different.
sub-area objective to work with Park District to explore potential for recreational opportunity.
Yeah, just to raise that issue,
Yep,
you know,
yeah.
next decade or 15 years. Thank you.
Because that came up with Stonebridge, right? There was the idea, do we need anything here, do we don't? And because there's nothing in that quadrant.
Correct, yeah. Let's see here.
And let me, to put a finer point on that, is there any, I mean, the idea that it could be, let's say it was developed somewhat independent of the other, I mean, I guess it could be an HOA, could it be a private asset or a public asset? Does it need to be a public asset?
It's true.
Do you have any opinion on that?
Oh, I mean, it could be part of HOA.
Sure.
Just to give the residents of that particular neighborhood a little bit of a gathering place.
Yeah.
And just leave it open-ended.
Okay.
All right.
Can I ask a question? On page 77, Buckley Road Marsh. Why is that in there, I guess, or?
If I remember, this area, the goal is to leave it like it is. And this area is a property that is owned by, I believe, IDOT, but also utilized by the Toll Highway Authority as set-aside space for their impervious surface as it relates to the stormwater management.
Okay.
That's what this is for.
So how do we have any, because I mean, it's not in Lake Bluff, it's just north of Sanctuary.
It's contiguous, right?
Okay.
And it's in that jurisdictional planning area, and that's why we're commenting on that.
Okay. But it's not something we're trying to annex or anything like that?
It is not, but I will tell you, we have over the years, before it was a village operational activity, the Lake Bluff Mosquito Abatement District has treated that area and sprayed that area from time to time because it's a wetland. And so we do too. The village has, if that's what our consultant recommends. We've done larvicide treatments. We haven't sprayed, fortunately, anywhere yet. But yeah, so that's it. We service it, so to speak.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Any other proposed revisions or topics of discussion? I think that Cuska, as they always have heeded our comments and the public's comments very, very professionally.
And it does look like there's a raised hand on the Zoom, if that is fine with you.
Yeah, we'll have to swear he or she in. Once they identify themselves.
Nick Anderson.
Hi, Nick.
Yes, hello?
Hi.
Nick, if you could, before we get started, we'd like to swear you in. So
Great.
I guess raise your right hand and
That's raised.
This is right hand.
you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because we're still alive.
I do.
Thank you, Nick. Please proceed.
Great. Thanks first. Thanks for everybody for working so late tonight for the meeting. One of the thoughts I had for the downtown, just to comment on a note in the comprehensive plan. I don't know what the right section it might be considered to go in. It was positive to hear that Mr. Dobbins on Block 3 had kind of talked about ways to coordinate with, the two sites to find synergies and ways that are good for the public. And I thought maybe for Block 2 specifically, given there's many parcels at play, one of them is a potential RFP coming out soon, and a lot of other properties. It might be worth suggesting that the property owners work together or find ways to collaborate to prioritize parking efficiency, pedestrian safety, stuff like that, so that when they come back eventually with a project design, it's kind of like we're telling them, find ways to work together for the benefit of the village. That's it. Thank you.
So you want to encourage collaboration among the property owners?
Yeah, I think just a note to say, we encourage you to work together to make the downtown function more efficiently. And obviously you can't force people to do things, but
Yeah.
kind of the best you can do.
It essentially, I think it would be a necessity to do so, right? Because you have to get the cooperation of folks. So can we go to the various?
Thought we addressed that somewhere.
Let me see.
It was just
We certainly did with the parking
the
aspect of
conversation.
it.
Yeah. Is there other sub-area objectives that get close that we can put a finer point on maybe?
Yeah, there, let me. Yeah, this is the sort of central business district, so we have the metro station.
Top part, what does it say? Objective?
Multifamily.
Oh, okay.
Remain flexible for parking solutions on new developments. Those are the objectives.
Oh, I was thinking about the 41-176 sub area as,
What is
because
the
that
language
is
there?
a multi-owner
Yeah. same
development
issue.
that was it is stated to prepare a master plan on page 45 for that area. I guess that might be what I was thinking of when we're having the discussion about coordinating between property owners. But I think it's totally appropriate for the CBD as well. In fact, I think it's appropriate for any major development in which there are multiple property owners.
Yeah, very good point.
Maybe a new sub-area objective that would say encourage redevelopment.
When redevelopment occurs, that property owners coordinate.
To collaborate and coordinate to
Maximize.
benefit of
just
the
collaborate and coordinate. And then maybe there's some detail about public improvements or stormwater management, village infrastructure, amenities, maximize public safety, the usual suspects.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Does that work for you, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, that's great. Just kind of holding them to a standard that we could point to in the future.
No, excellent point. Any other comments or recommendations, Mr. Anderson?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
No, thank you for your input.
Staff did go through this together for, like, we called it like a final review, and we looked at it and we went through and added some things that had been on the list of to-do to include going back and looking at the village's tree preservation regulations with respect to heritage trees. That's something that's been on the list. Haven't gotten back to it yet, put it on this. We did work to be responsive to Mr. White's comments at the last meeting regarding clarity and trying to make sure that the village's affordable housing plan and other housing objectives, there's clarity around that. Yeah.
I think for such a large document, you're always gonna find something to tweak. So you gotta.
That's why the previous one was amended
Right,
numerous
yeah.
times over the
For the mem-
years. Yep.
And it can be amended, so. So what's the next step with this?
So you could, and because this has taken this long, I don't think there's anything wrong with continuing the public hearing and let us address these kind of like what we think may be final issues, bring it back at the next meeting, and then you guys could probably plan on sending it to the village board at the next meeting, unless there's
I'm comfortable with you making those minor changes. Nothing's controversial.
Well then,
I would agree.
Yeah.
I've been commented, but I just want to say thanks to you and Clara and to Michael Blue and Abstentia, because I know I slammed you with comments the last 2 months, and going through my last batch of comments, boy, you guys
thank you.
did a great job. It wasn't exactly how I wanted things, but I'm a reasonable guy. And you did, I'm happy as a clam with this final.
That is
Addition.
sub-area objective number 2. Keep George happy as well.
No, I think the village did a tremendous job.
Yes, a
Drew,
lot of work in this
Lot of work.
last couple of go-rounds, for sure.
And the Tesca team did an excellent job also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did probe rather deeply on some issues.
I think it's harder because this is not cornfields, right? This is harder, right? This is, like we talk about, it's the Mona Lisa. You're gonna restore it, you're gonna, don't mess it up.
Yeah, that's the key.
So are we gonna say that you can take it and run with it, or does it have to come back here?
Well, that's up to you tonight if you guys are ready to send it to the village board, and then you won't see it. But the plan is to, once it gets to the village board, we talked about having like, this is your new plan, like, communicate to the community that it's been done, it's a lot of work, here it is.
I, for one, can bypass coming back here.
I think there's your second. I think that's what I heard.
I think I'm comfortable with where we are and that
That's fine.
we're in a
Were
good
there
position to
any
forward it.
provided that statements as one of our options here? To recommend, provided that, were there any conditions that we?
The very minor comments, like adding this one recommendation that
For the
Mr.
CBD?
Nick Anderson, and I think I heard you were gonna incorporate Mark Stolzenberg's maximum comment.
I think that's easily enough done, if you guys all agree with it.
Oh,
No
yes.
problem.
Like, does everybody know?
The 2.5 stories.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that provides clarity.
So, yeah, and then probably the more difficult, maybe combing through there and seeing if there is something to do to say, find some way to cross-reference, check this section, or,
Well, I can shoot you that, and
Yeah.
you could run with that, and it's just a few of them.
Yeah, and again, I think village staff, we're the primary users of this document, right?
Right, and you can decide that it
Yeah, and-
doesn't make sense, too.
Yeah, but again, it's like, this thing is 20 years from now, I'll be 30, and who knows? No, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
This is,
right.
yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, I think the commission did an excellent job too, working their way through it, having great dialogue, and it's just an excellent team effort all the way from the commission through the village and through Tesca. And I think everybody ought to be proud of the work that they've
It
done.
looks legitimate rather than homegrown.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with homegrown, but there is an element of visual communication of what the community's about, and I think this plan does that remarkably well. Looking at a lot of other plans, it communicates what's important to the village, and I think I've said it 100 times, that there's some plans that say, we don't want to be this. I think this does a lot of communicating what we're about successfully.
Great.
You're here?
Great. All right.
So I move to recommend the village board approve the updated comp plan, provided that those things that we discussed are addressed.
Yes, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, do we have a vote, please, Clara?
We do. Member Sorensen?
Yes, aye.
Member Toll?
Aye.
Member Danley?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Miller?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
And Chair Peters?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Drew.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Send a note to Brandon.
Champagne? 2 years of work?
Yeah, right. What were you afraid of?
All right. Agenda item number 9, what do you have?
Yeah, so I just wanted to let everyone know that next month is shaping up to possibly be a busy one as well. So we may need to schedule at 6 p.m. again. If anyone has issues with that, let me know, but I'll be in touch about that. We have at least 2 public hearings already, and
But no comprehensive plan.
yeah, that's true, that's true. It takes one off the list, so.
Okay,
It's the
whatever you
14th.
need.
Is that right?
No, I think
21st.
it's the 21st, yeah.
So here's something to think about. With the comp plan, because I don't know how long the board's going to sit with it, they did get a preview right before you opened your public hearing, and they were excited about the plan. But of those items in the back that are high priorities, think about if there's some of those, how do you want to tackle those? Is there something that you think is, we can maybe put together a list saying, because it wouldn't hurt to start saying, we're going to try to tackle these 1 a quarter. You know, make a goal and try to start ticking those off. Because again, some of the best fruits of labor coming off the comp plan was the downtown plan that resulted in Block 1 and what you're seeing, you know, all this. It takes time to grow, but some of those things were immediate, like, we should immediately do this, study the downtown. And there's a couple of those in there. So maybe look at that list and say, hey, I like this, but we can start working that and kind of develop a working plan maybe at the next meeting.
Well, so you'll just bring it to us in piecemeal,
The high priorities.
higher priorities.
We can just go grab those and we can internally say, here's staff, if we were doing something, this is what staff, and you guys can edit that. That's easy enough too. It's always easier to play editor than creator. So, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, I think that's totally fine.
I wouldn't want Member Miller to be without comp plan work.
This is
It's very important to him.
my dream
Hey,
in life
Elliot.
is comp plan.
He came from the plan commission, so he's,
Yeah.
That's right. That's his sweet spot.
all right. Agenda item number 10, Commissioners report.
I just have one question. I thought I heard that Brad Schneider's said that a lot of things got frozen, needless to say, and was the viaduct funding one of the things that got frozen, or did I not get that right?
My understanding was that initial 750, excuse me, had already been sent to the SMC. That was the village's 750, but it was given to the Regional Stormwater Management Agency. And my understanding is that has been sent. We had worked with him to get another, just whatever we could get, and it was like $250,000 in play. And that was that's gone.
Okay,
So that's my understanding.
okay.
And the SMC hasn't asked for it, so, importantly.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments or concerns?
I don't know if you want to.
Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
How's the weather in Colorado?
The weather in Colorado is lovely. Remember, this is at the same latitude as Washington, D.C. and St. Louis, so spring comes a little bit earlier and there's no lake breeze.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second?
Someone said Deb's.
Yeah, I said second.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you.
Hot diggity dog.
Hey, Clara, can I give you this? It's a lot of paper.
Yeah.
I'll keep the comp plan for